Thank you very much. So, my colleagues, I've learned a lot, and I figured now we're about to talk about some smart lockers, but I think I'm going to get with Amy and David to figure out how do we use their apps to open the doors of our lockers. Then we'll go to Erica to see how they like the experience. So, thanks for the technology updates as we go. And I'm also with Dan Greeny, who's going to jump in a little here and help me move my slides along to talk about who is Quadient. And since we're talking about branding, not many people, I'm sure, know the name Quadient. So I'm going to give you a few hints. You may know us from our name that used to be used last year and the last 90 years called Neopost. And Neopost has been involved in mail distribution for a long time. We are involved in over 2,000 campuses currently as we speak in getting the mail out and the distribution of the mail on campus. We also became Quadient this past year. And as our company changed with different services, including the acquisition of a company called Parcel Pending, we got heavily into a greater focus on distribution of packages. So you see all the information on the screen. We've been around a long time. We're global, but that doesn't really matter based on the circumstances that are happening in today's world. So we're going to focus on that. Our products range from the mailing and the distribution of mail with both electronic, archiving. We're helping college universities get their acceptance letters out, rejection letters out fast. But really the big boom has been, how do we help distribute packages and mail more efficiently and safely on campus? And in the last 5 years, it's completely reversed. The amount of mail being distributed versus packages has flipped. And for those of you that are familiar with the little mailboxes in the dormitories, that included my youngest son, never goes to because they don't think they're ever going to get mail. They want to know where their Amazon purchases are, and they want to know immediately. So we'll talk a little bit about how we can help with that and how we have helped. So go ahead, Dan. So I put a couple of college universities here that we've set up a parcel and mail distribution process, but I'm going to tell you, it's not a bragging slide. It's actually a learning slide. And over the past 3 to 4 years where we've implemented intelligent lockers and mail distribution software, we've learned a ton, and we continue to learn from our partners on the environments that change every time on their campus. And this is a big change now. And Dan's actually going to go through a couple of things that we've learned to opening up the first week on campus on how crazy and chaotic it is, because everybody's they've ordered their new sheets from Bed Bath & Beyond. No one's bringing a U-Haul trailer anymore and dumping them off. Everything's getting shipped. So that's been a good experience for us. We have about 70 college universities right now that have intelligent lockers. Some of them have connected them to their tracking software for packages on campus. Others have also tied it to distributing mail, no longer deliver mail to the students. Essentially, they put a notice and text out to them to let them know where they can come collect it. And we'll talk about that more in a second. Go ahead, Dan. So before I pass it over to Dan, here's what we've learned about our current situation, and perhaps makes your jobs extremely difficult today. Because the number one responsibility, of course, is protecting the school's reputation to make sure they take care of their students and staff. That, of course, I'm sure every single college university, the number one priority is we're going to protect our students and our staff. By the way, you have to do that with a lot less revenue in your budget because those funds have been redirected to online courses, refunding housing costs, and other investments they have to make sure it's safer. So your expectation is to make it safer with less funds. The other thing you're going to be asked to do is, I need your service levels to be maintained. I need to make sure that all those things that you provide the students and staff still maintain close to the same expectations that you did before COVID. So you've got less funds. You may not have as much investment. You have a higher degree of safety, but the same expectations. And you may or may not get the same amount of staff. So we wanted to give you a few ideas and share with you what a couple other college universities have done based on these circumstances. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Dan Greeny to join in. And Dan, could you take this next couple of slides?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris, and thank you so much, and thank you to the co-presenters as well. We've touched on a lot of interesting topics in the current environment of higher education, and this is something that we're keeping a very close eye on as someone who handles those mail and package pieces that are coming into universities. What are folks' plans to reopen? Right, many of the universities closed abruptly, and now what is that plan to reopen? And as you can see here, um, more than half are planning for an in-person experience, right? And our main purview there is okay, you're going to plan for an in-person experience. What are you going to do with these pieces, and how are you going to adjust your workflows based on your previous years? We talked to many customers. University of Pittsburgh is one of our customers. I think we're actually doing a webinar with them pretty soon here for the group. But ultimately, how did things change for them? Whether it was from a resources perspective or just operational perspective, how did things change? And a lot of it is changing in regards to during the move-in process. You know, traditionally the move-in process consisted of someone loading up a car and delivering things to the campus. Obviously, that has subsided a bit in the past few years because a lot more is being purchased via e-commerce and delivered to the universities. But how do you get those purchases from the e-commerce safely to the recipient's hands? And again, as a valued business partner of University of Pittsburgh, it's something that we've helped with along the way, and that we're pretty proud of. The same thing on the hybrid model. You're going to have faculty and staff potentially coming in part-time, working from home part-time, but ultimately there's still going to be pieces that are going to come for, again, not only faculty and staff, but also for the students. So how do you handle those pieces that are coming in? Are we going to start to digitize some of the mail that's coming in? Again, and what do you do with the parcels? And you can see here planning for online is about 9%, and considering a range of scenarios and waiting to decide. It's starting to get later and later into the summer, so that waiting to decide about 2 months ago was quite a bit more than it is today. But again, ultimately, this is something that we're keeping a very close eye on. We're working with many of our business partners today to help them with those operational plans on how to, again, either digitize the mail that's coming in, digitize some of the outbound pieces that are going out, right? You might not have the same staff that you had last year, unfortunately, whether that's FTEs, or even student workers, right? Those student workers may not be there. They might not be there to help you get out the pieces that you needed to get out, whether that's to the enhancement office to send out alumni pieces to bring back in some of your funding and donations. You might not have the students workers there to process some of that. So how are we handling helping those customers, business partners, send some of those pieces out? And it all falls back to this: what is the model that you're planning on for the upcoming semester? And we've had a lot of interesting stories that go along with that. Okay. I am keeping an eye on the QA, so if there's obviously any questions, you can fire them off. I'm going to hand it back over to Chris to kind of take us into the clubhouse here. So Chris, you could go ahead, but ultimately, if anyone had any questions, again, I'm monitoring the QA and I'm happy to answer anything that you might have top of mind.
Thanks, Dan. Just a couple things of the before and after picture. So what you're trying to stay away from is long lines. In the last couple of years, there have been people with tents outside in the first week waiting for the mail and exchange area to pick up their packages. So long lines are a bad thing in the COVID area. How do I make sure I disengage or reduce the number of transactions where I'm actually having a person-to-person package exchange or mail exchange? So all those items on the left-hand side of the screen continue to be challenges even before COVID, but now they're even more concerning based on the potential risks. So on the right-hand side, some of the solutions that we have, and we have a plethora of college universities that we can share how they came to the decision-making process of where, how many, impact, ROIs. We're very open to share those stories. We actually give out awards based to colleges that have done the most and best on the KPIs of this. So certainly a touchless environment of picking up your package. You don't have to touch the locker. In fact, you don't necessarily even have to touch a screen. You walk up and the door opens based on knowing from the phone. who the student is, and they can take the package from there. Mail can also be in the same system, either delivered within a locker or behind the counter, and only asked to come pick it up if it's required for them to be able, or they want it. There's some scanning devices that we've put in and added to the system that can show your students and staff what's waiting for them, and they can decide whether or not they want it or not and tell you to throw it away without having to do any labor or any interaction. There are college universities that also have done a great job that instead of their staff loading the lockers, they have gotten the carriers to load the lockers. And that's certainly very helpful. And we have those best practice stories to show you how they were able to do that. You can, of course, accommodate this with less staff or with the data. And as one of my colleagues said, everybody loves a dashboard. But you can also now decide when the best time it is to load lockers based on the pickup times that come in, and be able to now utilize your staff to be able to now pick the hours that are going to be most productive. And the last thing that's most important now is, I think we've heard from at least 10 to 15 colleges that they're moving a lot of students now off campus because they're only going to allow one student per dorm. And that means there's less students on campus and potentially more off campus. And we want to be able to have the capability of offering those same services if you're off campus, but you may not be getting compensated for that because they're not being charged the housing bill. So it can now turn into a revenue producing one. You can now charge for the use of the package delivery, monthly fees or services, and you can set up an outdoor locker on the perimeters of your campus so that commuters and or those students that choose to live off campus can still get their packages delivered to them, provided the fact most of them won't have the capabilities of the security on the off-campus locations that they're now using. So those are some of the examples that we're happy to share with you, what other companies, what other college campuses have chosen and why. So go ahead, Dan. And I think that's our real wrap up here. Certainly, there's many of us to contact. We have a separate higher education program dedicated mainly to parcel and mail delivery, and we're happy to help and share.